So, who do you think is the most prolific mathematician in all of history? It's a fantastic question, and the answer, well, it might just surprise you. It's a name you've definitely seen in your math classes, but the story behind that name is just absolutely incredible. Let's dive in.
And the answer to that question? It's a man named Leonhard Euler. And while he was, without a doubt, a giant of mathematics, this isn't just a story about formulas and equations. It's a story about passion, about unbelievable productivity, and about a mind that simply refused to be stopped by anything.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it starts with a classic dilemma, a real fork in the road. We're back in the early 1700s, and a young prodigy has to choose between his father's dream for him and his own personal calling. On one side, you've got his father's plan. See, his dad was a Protestant minister, and he had it all mapped out. His son, Leonhard, would follow right in his footsteps, go to the University of Basel, study theology, and become a minister. But here's the thing. On the other side was Euler's true calling. His dad had taught him some basic math, and it just lit a fire in him, a passion that he started chasing all on his own.
And the real turning point, well, it came from one of the biggest names in European math at the time, Johann Bernoulli. Young Euler got an introduction, but Bernoulli was way too busy for private lessons. Instead, he gave Euler what he called this much more valuable advice. Basically, go teach yourself from these advanced books, and then come see me on Sundays and we'll talk about what you don't understand. Bernoulli immediately saw the genius there, and he's the one who eventually went to Euler's dad and convinced him to let his son become a mathematician.
And once he got that blessing, man, there was just no stopping him. He starts university at the age of 14. Let that sink in. 14. By 20 years old, he's already packed his bags and is on his way to Russia to join the super prestigious St. Petersburg Academy of Sciences. An academic rock star was officially born. You know, his arrival in Russia was a total game changer. He wasn't just working by himself anymore. He was joining what was basically the Avengers of 18th century science. It was the absolute perfect environment for a mind like his to just explode with new ideas. And he climbed the ladder at the academy like you wouldn't believe. He quickly becomes a full professor, then lands the senior chair of mathematics. He also started a family, marrying Katharina Gesell, and they would have 13 children together, though, so sadly, only 5 of them survived their childhood. And this is one of my absolute favorite things about him. It just perfectly shows his incredible ability to concentrate. I mean, can you just picture that scene for a second? A house full of noise, kids playing everywhere, and there's Euler, holding a baby in one arm, and just casually revolutionizing mathematics with the other. It's amazing. But, you know, his time in St. Petersburg wasn't all smooth sailing. This is also where we see the first signs of the lifelong health problems he would face. He almost died from a fever, and then, a few years later, he lost the sight in his right eye, which he blamed on working too hard on a cartography project. This was really just the first chapter in his long fight against adversity. So, in 1741, with things getting a little dicey in Russia for foreigners, Euler gets an offer he can't refuse. It's from Frederick the Great of Prussia. The mission? Come to Berlin and help him build a brand new, world-class Academy of Science.
So, how'd he do in Berlin? Well, get ready for this number. In his 25 years there, he wrote about 380 articles. To put that in perspective, that's like publishing a major paper every few weeks for a quarter of a century straight. The man was just an absolute productivity machine.
And a huge reason he was so prolific? He had total freedom to just do his work. He could research whatever he wanted. He even wrote that he was, and I'm quoting here, the happiest man in the world. That kind of freedom is a scientist's dream. But don't think for a second that he was just locked in a room thinking about abstract math. No way. He was incredibly practical. He was managing people, overseeing finances, publishing maps for the public, advising on big engineering projects like canals, and even consulting for the government on everything from state lotteries to pension plans. But, like a lot of these arrangements with powerful patrons, things didn't stay perfect forever. His relationship with King Frederick started to go south, and in 1766,
Euler packed up and returned to St. Petersburg. He was 59 years old, and this is where his story enters its final and most astonishing chapter.
Almost as soon as he got back, just one disaster after another struck. First, an illness leaves him almost completely blind in his one good eye. Then, a fire sweeps through his home, destroying it. He barely gets out with his life and, crucially, his mathematical papers. And finally, a risky operation to fix a cataract actually works for a few days, but then it fails, leaving him completely and totally blind.
So you have to stop and really think about this. I mean, seriously, what would you expect from a brilliant mathematician who could no longer see a thing? What could the end of his career possibly look like?
The answer is just mind-blowing. While completely blind, Euler produced nearly half of his entire life's work. The single most productive period of his entire career came after he lost his sight. It is almost impossible to believe.
So how on earth did he pull this off? Well, he dictated everything. Relying on this just phenomenal memory, he would perform unbelievably complex calculations and come up with entire proofs, all in his head. Then his sons and a team of assistants would write it all down for him. They weren't just taking notes, they were helping him shape his ideas. So what does all this incredible work actually mean for us today? Well, his legacy isn't just hidden away in some obscure theorems. It's literally in the language of mathematics that students learn every single day. Think about this. If you've ever written f of x to describe a function, that was Euler. The number e, the base of natural logs, Euler. That big sigma symbol for adding a bunch of stuff up, Euler again. The letter I for the square root of -1, yep, that was him too. He either invented or popularized all these symbols, creating a standard that we all still use today.
You know, his mind never, ever stopped working, right up until the very end. On the day he died at 76 years old, he'd spent the morning teaching his grandchild a math lesson and doing calculations about the motion of hot air balloons. Later that afternoon, he was talking with colleagues about the newly discovered planet Uranus when he just suddenly collapsed. His final words were simple and direct. "I am dying." He lost consciousness and passed away later that evening. A mind that had been in constant motion for over 70 years finally came to rest.
So as we wrap up this incredible story, I want to leave you with this one thought. Euler's life, it kind of forces us to ask what genius really is. Because for him, it wasn't about what his physical eyes could see, but about the unbelievable clarity of the mathematical universe he saw so perfectly inside his own mind.